Welcome to today's stream. Hello Dash, welcome. Hope you had a nice day so far. So we are playing some Fractals to start out with. I wanted to test a little bit if the Virtuoso nerf is greatly exaggerated or if it's just really, I don't know, dead now. No one can play it anymore. Power Virtuoso, that is. Let's see. Yeah, my day was good. Glad you had a good one as well. So far, nothing too interesting, but I'm quite happy about the balance patch. Something new to test out, something maybe changing in some game modes at least. Let's see. I'm always excited for that kind of stuff. I know not all the people are. Some people are always a little bit, oh, I don't like change. I get that. But for me as a veteran, typically it's just way more interesting if I have something new to play. Yeah. And I'm totally on board with the hype train on Warrior. I'm so excited to try out and maybe come up with a really crazy Berserker build using a lot of one-handed weapons. Maybe I can even make a Blade Zone work. That would be crazy good. I think this is a really cool change. Maybe you can even make it work in competitive modes, but I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit too much cope. I think going for auto attacks and that kind of stuff in competitive modes is often not the most impactful stuff because the damage is just too low. But in PvE, I think this trait is insane. Now that it is working with quickness and you can increase your attack speed even further, I think this is really cool. I think this is a really nice change. Yeah, but like I said, I think changes for me are really important. I discussed it previously in a video and that kind of stuff. I think it's important to make changes for every game mode, but I think it's important to make changes, especially in PvE, in regards to how well a build performs without changing too much of the gear requirements. So for example, if a Power Berserker is using Berserker gear because it can easily crit cap, I think it would be really important that if the damage is too low, they just buff the damage. They don't change traits around and make the crit chance less and whatever, so that you have to change your gear as well. I think it is really important that the changes are number changes in a sense that you can play a new spec that is then performing better without having to completely re-gear everything. I think this is really important. A lot of PvE players are either playing only one class or are just having difficulties to going for a new kind of gear, don't have full legendary as I do. So I totally see the point of I want to stick with my gear and maybe change my rotation, but not change everything that I've worked for months, whatever, yeah? Welcome, Filthy Casual, welcome. And I think this is really important that you take care of and know your audience, that your community, what it's typically playing, how it's playing the game, so that you, in the end, make the correct balance decision. Because in PvP, and to some extent World versus World, it makes sense to nerf stuff that is really strong. Also regarding gear requirements and traits and that kind of stuff. Because people there are probably probably a little bit more hardcore than people that are typically playing casual PvE and just have one gear set. If you're playing PvP, if you're playing World versus World, you're probably a little bit more advanced. You have more gear sets, maybe even legendary gear, and it's a little bit easier for you to swap around, or at least you are more committed to the game and you might want to change stuff around. So I think there it makes a little bit more sense, but especially in PvP where everyone has the same gear, it's totally clear to me that they have to make changes that are really impacting what kind of build you're running and not only changing numbers so that a Willbender does now 10% less damage. I think this is not something that is changing too much. Yeah. And I'm not sure if they really succeeded with PvP. We will see. I think my biggest and probably not that hot take is probably that Mirage currently in PvP is a menace. And with this balance patch, it gets a 10% damage buff. And it will get get out of hand. I'm completely sure about that. I think Mirage will be the absolute damage spec number one. There will be nothing that beats Mirage in terms of damage output, maybe even in terms of usefulness in every single situation. And I'm not sure if they are aware of this. Let's see. I think changes are definitely better than no changes and letting game modes run the same kind of builds for 2 years straight. I think this is definitely not something you want to have. Sure, go ahead. I'm always happy if there's some questions here. I try to answer it. Yeah, I have to be honest. I think it's, for me, ArenaNet typically does balance decisions that I at least can see the direction. Yeah. In PvE nowadays, I would say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. So I have to be honest, Warrior is in PvE in a weird spot. I think only Warrior mains that are really dedicated to Warrior are currently playing it. So this is, I think, a bad spot. You want to have Warrior useful in a lot of things. But I'm not sure. I hope that this change with the one-handed attacks and stuff might bring Warrior back. But I'm not sure if it's enough. So, yeah, Mr. Smith on YouTube, I agree. Willbender got a really big nerf in World vs. World. I think it's deserved. It was way too strong. I think you can still play it, but it's way worse, for sure. I'm familiar with Discretize website. Discretize website is really nice when it comes to fractal guides and that kind of stuff. However, they don't typically update their website, and I would say either not at all or very, very late. So if there is a change in fractal meta, you might not see it happening there. One second. Got a question here from a... So I think that the Discretize website is not the best place for you to look if you are really looking for perfect fractal builds, because they might not be up to date. So in my case, I would go with a raiding build, go into this lobby here, check your stats. So if you are with the pots that you can equip, the maximum pots that you have and the food, if you reach the same number as the fractal, as the Snowcross websites tells you to, so 60% crit rate, for example, on a Virtuoso or something like that, then you are fine. If it's 65 or if it's higher because of the pots, of the food, whatever, of the infusions that you have, then you might have to adjust your build. So that's why I think it's really important to have a little understanding why those builds work in the way. So the Discretize website is really good, especially when it comes to builds that are not changing, because they are still up to date in that case. But if you're looking for the latest changes, they will take a while for sure. Takes forever to find the last person. Maybe I have to do the quick DPS here. Let's see. I'm looking for a nice class to choose as my dedicated fractal character. As you know, I like to play support. On their website, they say Guardian is easy to master, but as far as I know, people say it's crazy hard with high MP. What is your take? I would say Guardian is actually not that hard. I think Guardian is probably, if you're playing support, so if you're playing a support Guardian, like full heal fire brand or maybe even quick fire brand, it's actually not that high APM. I think there are way more classes that have higher APM. However, and this is the weird part, I think it depends a little bit what you expect. So if you compare it, for example, to a Chronomancer, a heal Chronomancer, I would say the bare minimum it has to do is actually not pressing a lot of buttons. But if you're performing if you want to perform perfectly or really close to it, then you press a lot of buttons as well. So I would say Chronomancer is a really good build. It has a weakness that it can't pre-stack that easily. So it's not the best build in that sense. But in my opinion, I would say for Fractals, Heal Firebrand is a really good place to start. If you understand how you can heal on this build, by dodging, by using your F-tomes, by using your staff skill maybe, by using your regeneration abilities and that kind of stuff, I would say it's a really good pick. It's not too hard, and it has a really high impact if you know all your skills. For example, you have reflex based in your kit, you have stability baseline in your kit, you have really, really easy access to quickness. Again, you have to position yourself a bit correctly to make it work. So I think Heal Firebrand, I would recommend to players that understand fractal fights is really, really good. If you are a little bit newer and you are, so to say, starting out in fractals and you have to concentrate more on the mechanics, I think Chronomancer or maybe even Heal Scourge might be a little bit easier because they are just pressing 2 buttons and they do what they need to do, but the skill cap or what they can provide might be a little bit lower. So I would say, I have to be honest, a lot of people that say Heal Firebrand is really hard to play are probably not really good players or not really dedicated support players. Because in my opinion, yes, if you compare Heal Firebrand to a Scourge, to a Chronomancer, they might have to press more buttons. But, one second. So, in my opinion, it's greatly exaggerated, for sure. Because in my opinion, I think if you are support that just presses 2 buttons, then you have to become a better support in the future. Yeah, so exactly like Snowdrop Fox says here, Heal Firebrand isn't hard, not at all, I would say. But playing it very well in Fractals is another story. A lot of people say, oh, it's an easy build. I play it, and then they perform really badly or don't heal, don't put out the boons. So I think that's really important. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Mug is a decent gamer. I'm not sure if he's the best performing Guild Wars 2 player. I don't want to offend him. I think he's a really, really important content creator. But I have to be honest, I'm not sure how, I don't want to say how well he plays every single class. You know, if you say you are main in Guild Wars 2, you say I'm the druid main. That makes me a little bit suspicious because that means that you don't play a lot of other classes, and therefore in that sense I would say it's a little bit hard to say, okay, you are really good on Heal Firebrand then. So that's just my take. Yeah, and I think it's totally fine if you're biased, but I think then you have to take a little bit of a grain of salt when it comes to the statements regarding other classes. Yeah. So let me answer a lot of other questions. 1 second. No, please don't. No clipping here. I don't want to offend anybody. It was just a statement in the sense that if you are a really dedicated main to a class, you might have a very different feeling than someone that plays every single class, because then you might have a little bit more lenience to some kind of play style. So that's what I said. I don't think Druid is easier or harder than Heal Firebrand. I think that depends a little bit on what kind of situation. I think Druid can be really hard and really cool if you can pull it off in raids, for example, with the utility that you bring. But in Fractals, Druid is not that strong, I would say. Do you think Power Mirage or Power Reaper is better for overall PvP, both solo and group? I think Power Mirage is levels, worlds apart from Reaper. Power Mirage is probably the best PvP roaming spec right now. Power Reaper is almost trolled here, I have to be honest. I think it's just way too weak. Yeah, so that's my short answer. In my opinion, the heal class has a complex role to play at the beginning of Guild Wars 2 in the pro team. Healers play a vital role according to Strike, Dungeon, and Fractal. For different situations or mechanic, healers change or swap utility and skill for smooth run. Exactly. I think very mediocre or bad support can pull off the boon, can pull off a decent amount of healing, but that you can do on a lot of classes. But if you know when to swap utilities, when to position yourself differently, when to swap weapons even, for example, you can easily solo a lot of raid mechanics on Druid, and not a lot of supports actually can do that really easily. So if you know what you are doing, you carry the group without even letting them notice. So this is really important in that sense, that you understand that a support in I don't know, the support in Guild Wars 2 is probably the hardest carrying class, even though they don't do any damage. So this is really important. Yes, the Spear Mirage build is still viable, and it's not even viable, it's the meta build. So, yeah. What's the top 3 classes for endgame PvE? This is really hard to answer. So if you really want to have an answer regarding one class, so meaning an elite spec, I would say for endgame PvE, Chronomancer, Virtuoso, and I don't know. Maybe it's really hard. Maybe I don't know. It's really hard. I have tier lists about all of this and where I discuss it, but I think it's really hard to pull it down. I think if you just want to hear the class, Mesmer for sure is really broken right now. I think Necromancer is really broken right now. And I also think Ranger is really broken. Those 3 classes, if you have those in your team, then it's really easy. But if you want to hear elite specs, then it might get a little bit harder, to be honest. I think elite specs, I can't really give you one clear answer, for sure. Maybe Druid, yeah, maybe. But Druid is not that strong in Fractals, so that's why I was considering maybe that's not the right decision here. No, my build. Yeah. Oh, last second change. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's really hard to make I don't know. I'm a player, I play every single class, so it's really hard for me to say this class is the best just baseline. You can't make a better class. I think 3 classes to pick out is really hard because it depends heavily on the situation. So for example, in Fractals, Druid is not that good because it has not it can't bring the utility that, for example, Chronomancer and Heal Firebrand can bring. But in raids, it's way better most of the time because it can provide so much utility with Longbow, with Tides, with Entangle and that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important. I can link it. Give me a second when we kill this guy, then I can link it. So I think it's really important, and this balance patch might change a little bit of what is currently strong. So give me a second, I will link it. So this is the defensive support tier list that I sent in my YouTube chat. And it will link you also to the other ones, I think. If not, you can also just go to the playlist that I can is linked, or this video is in the playlist, and you can just check it out. Oh, no problem. I mean, it's after all my live stream, and I want to promote my YouTube videos. I think Mesmer always baseline is a really good class. Just in PvE and PvP, it has so much utility and stuff. But nowadays, with just how Chronomancer is broken and Virtuoso is also quite strong, it's actually quite crazy how much of a powerhouse Chronomancer and Virtuoso are. They are just so strong. And the spear did not help in that sense, because the spear of Mesmer is just probably the best spear even after the nerfs. So it's just baseline. Such a good kit. It's really crazy. So I would say that's really important that you understand that Mesmer is, I would say, the most broken class right now. But I think Guild Wars 2 is in a weird state, because if it comes to balancing and PvE, I think almost every single class has a broken elite spec. Just because they balanced PvE in a sense that they just want to have every single class be broken. Yeah, it's not like they balance around that the content is hard. No, they want to have every single class being extremely strong. So I think this is okay. That makes the game fun, but it makes it also a little bit easier than it was way back when it was released and that kind of stuff. So what is the most wanted class? Yeah, I think it depends always what kind of content you're playing. So if you're playing, for example, raids, then a druid is really wanted. If you're playing fractals, Hellfire Brand is way more wanted. So this is what I mean with that. But typically, all the classes that I put really highly in this tier list is a class that is typically played by all the people, because they also see it like that. Because if some really high-level player says this class is really strong, then typically they accept that and just play it as well. So yes, I would say Mesmer, Guardian, and Ranger are probably the best classes when it comes to what class are wanted. If you really want to go down with elite specs, I think this is just too broad of a question. I can't tell you this 3 elite specs are wanted, because it depends heavily on the game mode that you're playing. So, oh no. Yeah, I think the PvE balance in Guild Wars 2 is just at the moment that it's working decently, but not too good. It's just every class can do everything, and that's what they want. They just want every class at roughly the same spot. And this spot is way too high, in my opinion, when it comes to just raw damage output. I think if the damage would be lowered, people had to learn way more about the mechanics and that kind of stuff. So in the end, I think that the classes do so much damage and that they have so much healing leads to people just not understanding the game too well, which is a big problem, in my opinion. The balance patch just dropped, yes, 1 hour ago. No, 2 hours ago, actually. Yeah. And I think you can just look at my solo builds. Most of the solo builds are so good that they can upkeep almost every single boon in the game. Yeah. And if you just think about this for a second, that you can make builds that are solo as strong as a DPS in a group is insane to me. I think that should not be possible in that sense. I think you have to sacrifice something. And most of the solo builds don't do that. You just have a little bit less damage, but that's it, which is insane. Okay. Okay, to force you even more, what specs are... 1 second, I have to concentrate, otherwise I will die. Are heavily wanted but rare, also less played. The underdog in that case. Okay, what is an underdog? I think typically classes that can perform a role that not a lot of classes can perform. So I would say healers are typically quite common that they are looked for, because people are not typically want to play DPS. So I would never go for DPS in that sense, because DPS classes are just very common. A lot of people play DPS classes. So I would definitely go for either an offensive support that is a really crazy underdog, I think, is probably Alacrity DPS Scourge. I think it's really, really good because it has a lot of support, even though it deals a lot of damage as well with the barrier. So that's an underdog in my opinion. And I think Chronomancer is also a heavy underdog in that sense, because the offensive support Chronomancer, because it deals a lot of damage while still having a lot of utility baked into the kit. And the last one is, in my opinion, Heal Chronomancer, because Heal Chronomancer has the ability to swap, I think, every single, I mean, it can play every single boon that it can do, for example, quickness, alacrity, all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it can also provide a lot, and I mean a lot of utility. Yeah. So, for example, you can provide permanent stability with this build. This is really, really strong. A lot of people always say, oh, bring a Herald, bring a Firebrand, that kind of stuff. But in the end, this is actually not necessary. I think just a really well-played Heal Chronomancer is the best. I mean, PvE, I think Caspi is right. I think I'm not sure if it's broken, but Power Mirage in PvE is actually really, really good right now. You can watch it. Even before the patch, Feint had a benchmark, which was really, really strong. And after the patch, it will get, well, the patch is out now, so it will be even stronger. So Power Mirage, they actually made it work. I think it's really, really good. It's really, really good. Caspi, it's not a joke. It's probably the best Mesmer spec for power damage right now. It's true. Sure. He outplayed me here. Outplayed by the bot. Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy Mirage and you wanted to try PvE, I think now is the time. I think they actually made it work. I think Spear Power Mirage is now actually the build to play if you want to play a Power Mesmer. So what would you choose? Chrono or Virtuoso? I have no Angel level 80, now starting a Mesmer. I would go for Chronomancer. I think Chronomancer is so strong you can fill every single role. As a Virtuoso, you only can play DPS. Yeah, raids are... It depends. If you want to go raiding and having a really high-end, crazy good group, then I would say yes, raids are that. If you just want to clear them, then you will be fine because there are a lot of people that just clear them and are not the best, but you still can clear it nowadays because the power creep is so strong. But if you want to have, like an AT group, but in a sense in that PvE meta, yeah, so that you have people that are speedrunning every single raid boss, then it might be a little bit harder to get them because either you go in Snowcrows or that's it. But I think you can go and play raids nowadays, even if you didn't before. I think it's very doable, especially with the power creep. You just kill every boss before it does mechanics. Yeah, exactly. If you know people that are really good, you just run with them and you get carried, and at some point you will also learn the fights. It's not really hard. I think Guild Wars 2 raids are quite easy to understand, especially when you're a PvP player. You just see a telegraph, you move out of it. That's it. Yeah. So let me explain the power creep, because we have a question here on YouTube. Why is power creep in Guild Wars 2 happening? So the power creep in Guild Wars 2 is really weird. Yes, since almost 10 years, the highest stat that you can get is Ascended. So in the end, you should not increase the power after that ever since. But that's not the case. The power increased by quite a lot. Why is that? The reason for that is, and that's the weird part here. The reason for that is that you have classes that are just getting buffed, and the really strong classes are getting nerfed a little bit, but in the end they will get buffed more than they get nerfed. So they will just have a continuous increase slowly over time. This is the first major issue. Or not issue, but reason. Yeah. Secondly, if you think about what the expansions bring, they not only bring new elite specs that also have to sell, because the elite specs have to sell. They have to be better, or at least somewhat interesting, than the other previously released elite specs. So they have to be either really strong or fill a really crazy good niche. So there is some kind of power creep there. They want to sell the new elite specs. And lastly, they add some kind of vertical progression. Yeah, just look at the new weapons. They are somewhat more crazy than the original weapons, as well as, of course, the relics. We did not have relics, but now we have relics, and those relics are, of course, way better than the old runes buffs, because you still get the old rune stats. So all of that together leads to a quite crazy amount of power creep, even though you don't really have new item levels or higher level gear. Yeah. So I hope I made this a little bit clear why it works like that. But I think Guild Wars 2, yes, should not have a power creep, but in the end it really does. Just look at the health bars of raid bosses. Whale Guardian health bar pops, and the new raid boss has almost triple the amount of the health bar. I think even more than that. So if you just look at that, you have to see there is some kind of power creep. Yeah. And Snowfrogs, yeah, thanks for pointing it out. According to SC, Power Mirage now comes out at around 45k plus, which is probably around top DPS on the bench. Which is crazy. Yeah. Do you know when I buy expansions from Epic Store, can I connect it to Steam? I'm not completely sure about that. I think you have to get the same, so you have to stay on the same platform. So if you buy the expansion on Steam, you get it on Steam only. So you can't swap around, I think. That's how it works. So better safe than sorry and buy it on the same platform that you normally play on. Yeah. Been playing Necro and not sure which elite spec to go into. Which one is worth investing in time, or can you switch between specs? You can switch all the time, but I would start out with Reaper. I think Reaper is the best elite spec when it comes to Necromancer, just for overall content. It is extremely strong, and I would say also most of the time the most fun one as well, at least for most people. So I would definitely go with those, with Reaper. But don't worry, you can easily swap around. You just have to equip the trade line and that's it, so no problem at all. Yeah. On a scale from 1 to 10, how hard is that Power Mirage to play? 7, I would say. So it's one of the hardest DPS specs, but you don't have to pull it off in that sense that you have to get the perfect rotation off, otherwise you'll no damage. To get it to 90% of the benchmark, I would say it's a 6 or so. It's not too hard. You just have to train a bit on the golem and that's it. I think the spear, if you understand how the spear works, then you're halfway there already. I think it's actually quite decent. Yeah. I don't know about that, but fun to play. It's 11 of 10. Yeah, I would agree. I think Mirage is just from the design perspective, it's insanely fun. Especially with Spear. I think it's really cool. So I'm happy that they buffed Power Mirage. But I have to be honest. I have a hot take here. Yeah, it's actually an interesting take. It's also a hot take, I would say. In my opinion, Mirage was never designed as a power spec. I think Mirage should have been the Condi spec, and I think Virtuoso should be the power spec. I think they don't have to force every single spec to be power and Condi. So in my opinion, this is a mistake that they did back in the day when they designed Virtuoso, that they had to give it Condi and power. Just a better option. Not very clean here, but okay, I guess it works. Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely, if you enjoy Asthma gameplay, especially with Spear, I would give it a try. It takes a while until SC updates all the rotations and get that kind of stuff and the gear that you need. But in the end, you can just play it and try it out for yourself. And then you will see the... Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely agree. The power creep in Guild Wars 2 is... It's actually, I would say, it's one of the worst things about PvE that Guild Wars 2 has. That the power creep is so insane, even though it is actually a non-vertical progression game. It's actually crazy in my opinion that they actually made it so bad, the power creep. It's quite impressive actually. Yeah. Take wing 1 to 4 for example. You need around 7 to 8k DPS on every player, so realistically 15k DPS for DPS. You can upkeep 25 to 30k on Unload Deadeye with a single button every 20 seconds. The only thing gating rates are mechanics, and most of those will get less relevant with every power spike. Yes, for sure. I think this is the biggest issue actually, is that mechanics, especially in 1 to 4, can be handled by 1 to 3 people. So that means if you have 3 people that know what they are doing, 7 people can just get carried extremely hard. Just baseline. Because people, vertical progression, the gear gets better, bosses can't be designed in a way that they will last forever. But in a horizontal game, if they even there don't work forever, I'm not sure. I think this is a big issue. Yeah, I guess you can also skip a lot of the mechanics just if you have enough DPS. It's also not a good thing, for sure. What is power creep? Power creep means that you just increase the level of DPS, of healing, of all that kind of stuff over the years, so that bosses that previously were really hard, or decently hard, will now get very easy just because your class does way more damage, your class does way more healing, and in the end, your game is way easier just because you increase the level of the power that your build can provide to the group. I mean, this group is definitely not a very good sign how well Power Word does, because I'm top DPS, but sure, I think it should not work. Thanks for the Prime. Thanks a lot, Snowdropbox. Really appreciate it. Also, Holy Oilo. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the stream. So, I think for me, it's really important that I can make you understand that power creep is happening in Guild Wars 2. And in my opinion, it's not good. I think it should be in a horizontal progression game. Every single boss that is released 10 years ago should still have a very similar amount of challenge than it had previously. Of course, the challenge will go down with time because you have more people understanding how the boss works and that kind of stuff, but I'm talking about the baseline challenge. If you now start raiding without knowing anything about the raid, it is not even close to the difficulty than it was before. Just because every single raid, spec and thing does way more damage, does way better healing, everything is AoE, it's just insane. Yeah. Yeah, and it's true. It's a really good thing for selling raids as well. Yes, that's true. But no one nowadays actually really sells raids in that sense to that extent anymore than previously, because they are also way easier now. So you typically only sell tough fights like Harvest Temple CM or Saros CM. Other than that, you don't really need to sell stuff anymore. I think in an ideal world, they would increase the power level. In an ideal world, they would increase the power level of the bosses. Just increase the health pool again. Or maybe make challenge modes of those bosses in an ideal world. But ArenaNet is very notoriously bad at going back to old content. Typically, they don't change stuff that is released already. Typically, they are not really fixing bugs at all. So that means if there's something out, it's out and they will not change it anymore. That's just the sad truth. So, yeah. I hope they do and go back and maybe make a challenge mode of Veil Guardian and that kind of stuff, but I really, really doubt it. I think that's just very unlikely. I would agree. I would definitely agree. If you're a new player, power creep can be good. But to be honest, I think if you're a new player and you kill a raid boss the first time, you might be very satisfied with your stuff. But in the end, I think you would be even more satisfied if the challenge would be a little bit higher. So I think power creep to some extent is okay, but to the extent that we currently observe it is way too much. Yeah. So in my opinion, this is something that they should definitely work on. But the sad part is I'm pretty sure that the next expansion coming this year will bring some new combat feature. I don't know what it will be, but the new combat feature will quite surely be another power creep level. Yeah. So in the end, we will probably have even more power creep at the end of the year than at the start of the year, for sure. What does grind them mean in World vs. World? A question from YouTube. That just means you deal a lot of damage on them and try to kill them with a lot of consistent DPS. Wow. Thanks a lot for the sub. Really appreciate it, Sandy. Hope you all enjoy my stream. Thanks a lot for the subs. Really appreciate it. So, Mirage 45k plus after the patch? Yes, that's definitely true. Yes, that's the case. And Power Mirage we're talking here. So it will be definitely a really... It's a really good DPS build, yeah. Definitely better than Power Word, I would say, when it comes to raw damage output. But Power Word has the really good options of having some ranged attack, which is definitely a good thing. For difficult content, at least. How about a challenge? Are you willing to try Power Mirage on the spot in some group content? We can do it later in raids. Yes, I can do it later in raids. I don't want to swap here right now because I don't have the Agony infusion and stuff set up. So I will be instantly dead when there's an Agony pop. So yes, I will do the challenge. After this, we will do some strike missions and I will do Power Mirage and just try it out without having any rotational training and that kind of stuff. Yes, I can do that, but after the Fractals, okay? So in probably 20 minutes or something like that. I mean, the benches of SC will take a little bit, but typically they are quite fast there, so you will see some benches out in the next few days for sure. Maybe even today if they're really grinding. Is Tempest removed? No, for sure not. I think actually healing Tempest might be a really, really good support right now, but you're probably talking about Power DPS Tempest. I think Power DPS Tempest is definitely not there anymore. I think it's a build that you can play, but it's more like a build that is fun to play, but it's not run as a meta build anymore. Because it's just got so many nerfs that it's probably still playable for sure, but it's not the highest DPS anymore. So I would say typical people that played it will probably now go to another class that is a little bit higher in DPS, because a 4k of DPS nerf is actually quite hard if you look at the benches from before. So I would say it's, in my opinion, it was a bit too much, the damage nerf. I think they could definitely have gone away with a little bit less. But I guess that's ANET. Sometimes they overdo it, sometimes they underdo it. I don't know. Yeah, I think actually the Fresh Air Scepter build is actually not that much meta anymore. You can still play it, but it's not the highest DPS anymore for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think the balance changes for PvE are debatable. I think this is not the best patch when it comes to PvE changes. For the competitive modes, I would say this is a really good patch. I would say they did some mistakes, but definitely way less than previously. For PvE, I would say, yeah, we could have gone better. I think that they nerfed, for example, Dagger and Spear on Mesmer. I think this is fine. But that they nerfed, for example, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of nerfing Elementalist so harshly. I think Elementalist did not deserve that much, I have to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. Did Rev got some changes in PvE? Yes, Revenant actually got some changes. Herald, as the quick DPS, got some damage nerfs, which is, in my opinion, okay. It's not really crazy necessary, but it's okay. They buffed Power Herald, so the idea is that a DPS Herald now should do way more DPS than a Quickness Herald. I guess they succeeded with that, but I guess still no one will play a Power Herald. Typically you play a Quickness Herald or you play a Power Vindicator maybe or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I think it's just not completely necessary, the change that they did. But I think this is the biggest change there. Other than that, some Renegade changes and some I think some Vindicator changes as well, but nothing crazy. I think there will be no big shakeups. Yeah. But we have to wait until we see every single benchmark redone. That is affected here for sure. Is Heal Firebrand still good in raids and strike missions? Yes, I would say it is really good if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, I think it's way worse than a Chronomancer. But if you know what you're doing, it's definitely a really solid build. I'm not sure if it can hold up. For example, if I am playing at a really high level as a Chronomancer and I would play at the same high level as a Firebrand with a Firebrand, I'm not sure if it would be better than a Chronomancer, because Chronomancer has just so much utility that it can provide if it really wants to. But I think it's still very valid, especially after the recent buffs that they gave it, that you have a way more page generation and that kind of stuff. So I think the healing output is actually really, really good. And I think they are on par just with the utility. Chronomancer comes out a little bit on top. Just because Chronomancer is so flexible. You can fill quick DPS or quickness and alacrity. So that's obviously something that a Firebrand can't do. And I think this is just amazing utility that you have to swap around as well. With the portal, for example, or blinking if you need it. And that kind of stuff. Firebrand doesn't have that utility in the kit. Yeah. Quick Hurl nerfs were a mistake. Yes, I agree. People played it because it's a boon bot, not for damage. They should have nerfed boon application optim instead. I think they are aware that the quickness herald changes are just decreasing the value of the damage that it does. Because it is still a carry for, let's say, noob groups, because it provides some safety with the boon uptime. I think they did not want to address this issue. So it's still a really good boon bot, just gets a little bit punished in that sense because the DPS is now even lower. So I get what they are doing, but I would definitely agree. I think that's not what they should have done. I think they should have addressed some of the boon extension and that kind of stuff. Okay, so currently Fresh Air benches at 42k. Yeah, I guess if you compare that, for example, to Mirage, that's 3k lower. So the high-end people will definitely not play Fresh Air anymore, because they will definitely go, for example, for Mirage done, or maybe even the Condi, what's it called? Condi Willbender, because I think this one did not get touched at all, and Condi Willbender benches at around 46k. Of course, it's a Condi build, but it's burning, so it might still be worth on a lot of raid fights to go for. Because burning has the fastest ramp up time. But like I said, I think you have to wait a day. You can't make this balance adjustments in the first few hours after the patch. You always have to see how it turns out. Of course, you can do some calculations beforehand, but in the end, you have to prove that as well with the benches, and can't just say, okay, this is how it will be after the patch, and you have the calculations and that's it. So we will see how the really hardcore players show us how it's done and what the bench ranking will be. Yeah, but DH is actually really good. I think DH was definitely, for me, a really big plus of the balance patch. I'm really happy that they buffed DH, because not a lot of people played it, except some really hardcore players in dungeons and fractals for one-shotting bosses. But in raids and strikes, typically you don't play DH. And now it's at a way better benchmarks. And so I'm really happy that they buffed it. Thanks. Welcome, Wolf, by the way. So I think this is a really good change. Where's my quickness? Typically, you see those benchmarks either on the Discord of Snowcrows, or you see it on a YouTube channel where someone benches it. Yeah, exactly. Xavi is a really good player, SC player. He plays a lot of DH. And I think DH deserves that, because DH is a very selfish spec. It has some nice blocks, but other than that, it's a very selfish DPS. So I think it's really good if DH sees some love here. That was a really bad knock, I have to be honest. Yeah, I think the age at 45k, that makes sense. It was there, not a lot. It was a really, really long time when the age was a really well, recommended class when it comes to raids and fractals. Or raids and strikes, rather. So I'm happy to see it back there. I'm not sure if it's deserved 45k because it has some nice defense baked into the kit as well, so let's see. I have not tried World vs. World, but I will do after this PvE run. So I would say in maybe, I don't know, 1 hour or so I will play World vs. World. I can't do everything all at once, but I will try as much as I can, of course. I think World vs. World is quite a bit shaken up by this, yeah, for sure. But I think it's mostly builds that are overperforming in roaming that got a little bit gutted. But other than that, I think the meta is still quite close to what it was. It's more like a little bit tuned down in what the builds can provide, which is, I think, a really good thing, because the meta in World vs. World, if it comes to really high-end group play, was typically you have 3 or 4 supports in a group, so the fights lasted forever. And now they tuned down a little bit of the damage, damage reduction, so I'm really happy that they did that. Right? Yeah, I think Thieves are still quite good, but they got a little bit nerfed when it comes to initiative and that kind of stuff, so that made it harder for them to play, and typically they get more punished if they can't permanently stealth, for example, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, they had a lot of changes with skills that apply stealth or can make you stealth, but I'm not sure if it's enough to make it completely useless. I think that's also not what they wanted in the first place anyway. Yeah, I think spear buffs made Untamed Ranger in every single game mode, maybe not World vs. World, but PvP and PvE, really, really good. I think it's a really good thing, yeah. And I guess it's also deserved because it was one of the worst spears, so I'm quite happy that they now got to make it better again, because that way Rangers can destroy a spear as well. Which light armor class would you recommend for Zerg DPS World vs. World? Ooh, it depends what kind of playstyle you want. I think backline playstyle is either Power Virtuoso or Power Catalyst or Power Weaver. Those are really backline heavy builds. If you want to stand with your group and stuff, then Power Reaper is probably the best option if you want to be melee focused and run around with your commander. So those 3 might be a good option, yeah. If you play Thief, you have criminal charges placed on you automatically. Yeah, that might be the case. I think a lot of people really enjoy Thief, are really evading the law to some extent, and trolling. No, I have to be honest, I'm not the biggest Thief fan in Guild Wars 2. I think Thief is fun for a little bit, but I just don't enjoy playing Thief forever, because I think every single Thief spec plays quite similar, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. I want to have some variety there. The only exception to that rule is, in my opinion, Spectre. I think Spectre is really good, and I'm really happy that they buffed it. And I have to be honest, I might try to go back on a Spectre arc and try to play some Spectre in every single game mode and try to see how it works. Because Spectre is completely different than every other Thief spec, and I think I really enjoy it. It's something really new. But I might have to learn it first. I think it's quite different. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm predicting too much of a buff there. But I guess I think it's a really, really good change with the AoE heal and that kind of stuff on Spectre Shroud and the AoE utility. So I think that helps it, especially in PvP, but also in PvE. I think it's a really good build after this balance patch. Yeah, for sure. Because before it was a lot of single target healing and buffing, which is in Guild Wars 2 just not needed or not really good because all the healers, all the supporters are doing AoE stuff. So if you are really good at single target healing, no one cares. Why would you care if you can't heal your group at the same time? So I think Spectre buffs are highly deserved because it was just not working in Guild Wars 2. Maybe in PvP, but now it's way better there as well. Okay, let's see how fast we can burst this guy. Yeah, I mean, my opener's still quite nice. I think the DPS nerfs is actually not that crazy impactful. At least for my casual Fractal gaming, yeah. Yeah, I think Thieves will definitely be played in PvEP and especially in World vs. World. I think they're just a little bit better balanced in that sense because they still can do all the stuff that they previously did, but they are just a little bit more heavy on the resource management. They have to think about it a little bit more and they can't just spam single thing. But I think this is a good thing, but they should probably have nerfs shadow arts instead of the skills all the time. Yeah, I think Thieves, if you're not a Thief enjoyer, typically the stealth axis of Thieves is typically really annoying people. So I get why people don't like it, but I think it's the only thing that keeps Thieves viable. If you would nerf stealth completely, then you would have a big problem for Thieves at least. They will not be playable, in my opinion. Thanks for the follow. Shit. Yeah, so. Insta-CC? No. So I also think Soul Beast or Untamed might be a really good option for Fractals, even better than before, just because of the buffs and the changes to Mesmer. And maybe DH might be even a better option. I think DH and Soul Beast are probably the best options now when it comes to power DPS. Maybe with Power Mirage, it depends a bit how hard it is to pull off. I have to test it after this Fractal run, if I can get some nice numbers there as well. If it's really hard to pull off, then Soul Beast and DH are definitely better. I think for a longer fight, DH is better. For a shorter fight in Fractals, I think if you can't precast all the time, I think a Soul Beast might still be the superior option. But I think it depends a little bit on your playstyle. Because if you can precast all the stuff that a DH can do with all the symbols and that kind of stuff, if you really go try hard, then I think a DH is still the best for Fractal speedrunning. But I guess that's not what you asked for. So I would say typically Soul Beast is the better option for just casual gaming here. And for raids, I would say DH might be the better option now because it 45k benchmark is really, really good. Yeah, I think also that's a good point. I think DH is a Guardian, and I think a lot of people enjoy Guardian. I think Guardian is the most played class, so it's definitely something that works well. Thanks a lot for the tier 1 subs. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Era, thanks a lot for 3 months already. That's been a great time. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Yes, what I'm currently using is Arc DPS, which you can see on the left side. It shows my DPS. It not only shows my DPS, but it also shows my CC on the bottom. So this is a third-party tool that is allowed by ArenaNet to be used by players in PvE and World vs. World. And you can download it. I can send you the link in a second. But the website looks really scuffed, so don't worry. This is on purpose, I would say. But it works. It's legal. You can use it. But of course, if there's an update and it's, for example, causes a DC, that's probably because of arc DPS. So there might be some issues, but ArenaNet won't help you with that. Yeah, Virtuoso is quite strong still. You can see, I mean, this group is not a really good showcase because they are not really that skilled, but it's definitely still working. 1 second, here's the link. This is the link to arc DPS on YouTube. And yeah, just try it out. It's really easy. Just download it. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I think Power Word was always the superior option for easy content, just because you have burst damage, you have all the nice utility that a word can bring. Condi Word is only really good in tough fights. So if you know your group is struggling, if you need some self-healing, if you need some just utility, then Condi Word is good, but they nerfed the damage quite a bit. I think it's maybe 5 to 10% damage nerf to Condi Word. So it's definitely not as good anymore. Yes, that much is for sure. But I think it's still viable. So don't worry if you're a Condi Word enjoyer. It's always the option that makes for the fastest run. So if I have 8 power words that are doing, I don't know, 3k more DPS than a Condi Word, I will in the end result in 24k more DPS. Yeah? So that will kill the boss maybe in 1 minute faster. Maybe even more. So in my opinion, that might be on easy fight and raids a really good thing to do. If you're now progressing, yeah, as a Zeros or Harvest Temple CM, then I would play Condi Word if I want to be really safe, or that kind of stuff. So yes, I think Condi Word is still a really good option there, at least as a Condi DPS. I think that didn't change with the patch, so I think it's still probably the best build to play on a really tough fight like Zeros CM or Harvest Temple CM. But that's just my opinion. Of course, I'm not the hardcore player that comes up with all the strategies and that kind of stuff. But I think it's definitely still playable. Yeah. I guess we do it as 4. Oh, we got the respawn. Very good. And if you have any questions as a new player, as a veteran, please don't be shy. I'm always happy to answer questions, even if they seem stupid. Of course, I don't know everything, but I can give you a lot of input on Guild Wars 2. I played the game for way too long, so I'm always happy to discuss some stuff here. Do you mind explaining the general rotation concept for Power Word, Condi Words for people who are new? No, I don't mind at all. So I'm currently playing Power Word. The idea behind Power Word is to use all your illusions that you can spawn, or the phantasms rather, really, really fast and off cooldown, before you then use your Signet of Ether, which is your healing skill, because it will reset all your phantasm cooldowns. Why is that so important? Because your main DPS is normally, where is it? Like, it's not here in this fight, but normally in a long fight, the main DPS is this trait, Phantasmal Blade. Every time you create a Phantasm, it shoots out a blade that deals 2.6k DPS. With might and that kind of stuff and critting, it deals a lot of DPS. And you do that quite often, so it does a lot of damage over the course of a fight. So you want to create your Phantasm as fast as possible. Now the trick here is, this Phantasm here will be cloned, so you have 2 Phantasms if you hit your 2 skill on the outer ring first on the spear. So this will create 2 Phantasms. If you then reset it, it will do that again. So in the end, you will get really high damage burst if you combine that with your healing skill, so you get 4 Phantasms out of there. That means 4 of this procs, so this is really core part of the rotation. And of course, as Virtuosos are typically played, all Virtuosos will receive blades when the Phantasm despawns or when you create a clone normally. So this will create a clone, and of course your 2 skill will also create a clone. So this is the typical rotation. You just want to cast all your really hard-hitting skills as well as all the Phantasms as fast as you can, and then you use your spear combo of as I just showed, 2, 4, 5 to reset the 2 and do the 2 again with the reset of the healing skill. You get the 4 again and you have a really high burst potential. And after that you can use your blade songs as a power word. Typically the only really important one is the F1 because this does really high amount of damage. Other than that, I would say you just spam all your skills. Sounds stupid, but that's typically what you do. Of course there is a rotation, I try to stick to it as close as I can, but that's the power word idea. And you always try to use all your blade songs when you have 5 blades, because only then you get 2 blades refunded, which is of course really, really nice, because that will just give you 40% of your blades back, so to say. Really nice. So the power word rotation, I would say, is quite straightforward when you understand how you deal damage. Yeah, which is just mostly by Phantasmal Blade in a long fight. And the Condi word rotation is not that different. You just don't play Spear, you just play Focus instead, and Dagger is still the same. And the idea here is to just create a lot of illusions and have a lot of blade generations. And on Condi word, you just spam all your blade skills all the time because they will all inflict a lot of bleeding, which is your most important condition that you do. So it's really important that you use this. And the idea on, I can show you Condi word in a second, but the idea on a Condi word is just to try to get as many blades as you can in the shortest amount of time. The illusions help with that, but it's not the most important damaging part. Illusions are just there to get even more blades to shoot out with your blade songs. Yes, you play Condi word with daggers. The idea in PvE behind that is that you just get a lot of damage from critting. Yeah, because Virtuoso is a really weird spec in PvE. It gives you bleeding on a crit just because of this trait here. Blade attacks inflict bleeding on critical hits. So you want to have 100% crit chance on a Condi build to inflict with every single attack that you do bleeding. And this bleeding will deal a lot of damage. So this is the idea. Of course, in PvP and World vs. World, this doesn't make sense because it's way too short lasting. It's only 1 or 2 seconds. Doesn't matter there. But for PvE, it's really important. Exactly. On power, you worry about the phantasms. On Condi, you worry about the blades. Of course, that doesn't mean you don't worry about the other stuff as well, but this is the most important key parts. So that was my really short summary of the build. If you want to know how to play it, I have build guides on my YouTube channel of those builds as well, where I explain them in detail. They are also perfectly up to date when it comes to gear. The only thing that is not up to date there is the damage number that you should get in the end, because it got just nerfs today. So you can definitely still check it out. I would go for, depends a bit what you want to do. If you just want to have fun and want to go for the fast-paced rotation, I would probably go for the power words. I think power word is the better option for most content. But if you want to be the safe player, to want to be the last one standing, even though you're DPS, and you want to be really safe, then I would go with the Condi word. Condi word is so self-sustained, it's really, really strong. It is also quite fast-paced and fun, but I think not as fast-paced as the power word in my opinion. But I don't know, I'm just a little bit of a power word fan. It got nerfed now, so I would say doesn't really matter. Pick the one that you'll enjoy more. If you're a spear enjoyer, go with the power word. If you are not that much of a spear enjoyer and want to have some nice ranged damage, then you go with the Condi variant. Condi, you have a really nice trait, so you get 3% of all your damage you deal, or Condi damage you deal, will heal you. That doesn't sound like much, but if you have 30k DPS, then it's actually quite a decent amount of healing that you get passively, and you have such a high amount of blade generation that you can get all your blades and stuff permanently, and you have, for example, a high amount of distortion uptime. You can reset it even with your skill that you have on the Condi word, and you can bring a lot of utility as well. So for example, Moa, Blink, even if you need it, all of that kind of stuff. So that makes it a really, really safe pick. So it's not, power word is not as safe, but it still has a lot of utility as well. Don't get me wrong on that, but it's just a little bit worse. Exactly, Condi is that's why I would say Condi is not my favorite pick, because for most fights they are just over too fast and it doesn't make sense to go for a Condi build. It only makes sense for a very few amount of bosses, either because they are hard or they have some weird phases going on. But that's just, yeah, my take. Is the DH rotation hard? Oops. I should jump. Not talk. So is the DH rotation hard? I would say not as hard as other DPS builds. It might not be the easiest, but it's decently hard. I would say if you just go from the difficulty, I would say maybe a 6 of 10. Yeah, I guess that's decent. The H is a little bit, you have to be a bit aware of the aftercast and that kind of stuff. That can be a little bit weird. And your positioning is important when it comes to traps and the melee skills. For example, Greatsword, you have to walk into the boss. That can be a little bit annoying if you're just starting out. But I think it's definitely not a really hard build to play. Yeah. Yeah, only Condis typically in Fractals, you go for 99 and 98. These are the typical ranged bosses, and that's why you play Condi, because of the phases in 99 as well. In 100, you actually don't need need Condi. You can also play Power. You can play both. It doesn't really matter. Just Condi is typically safer, so people tend to play Condi there as well. But 100 is not really necessary to play Condi. It's both, so to say. You can play what you want. Yes, Condi Willbender is OP. Is OP in 100 CM, just because it's a really, really bursty Condi build, and it has a lot of utility that it gets from the orbs. So that's true. But that's a special case. It doesn't mean that your Condi word is broken in 100 CM. It's just because the power Condi Willbender is so strong there. Okay, so we had someone that wanted me to play a power Spear Mirage, and I guess I will just do that. I will just get the build ready, and then I will play it without any setup. Let's see if I can make that work. If I can find the build. 1 second. Maybe someone can link it if they have it, because I don't. I think I have to come up with it for myself. So, Power Mirage. Thanks for the follow, Jesus. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Condi word isn't broken in 100 CM, it's broken every word. Distortion alone makes Mesmer broken. Yes, I think that's why I said it's such a safe pick, because of the distortion. But it doesn't, let's say, impact you that much on 100 CM. So I would say it's not like you have to play it there. It just helps if you are not that comfortable with the rotation and the mechanics there. But I would say it's not the best DPS build if you know what you're doing. That's just what might take it. Yeah, it's actually crazy. I did not expect to be Power Mirage anytime soon the best DPS build, but apparently that's what they are going to with. So let's see. I have to check where it is. Give me a second. Ah, perfect. That's what I wanted. Thanks. Thanks, Snowdrop. Really appreciate it. Just looking for it all the time, but I couldn't find it on the spot. That's what I wanted, yeah. Okay, so we have this trait, that means classical power traits, and then we have dueling, and this, and that, and then we have spear. I have to be honest, I don't have too high hopes with my rotation here. I just try my best here. I have not benched it at all. I never have played a power mirage in PvE, I have to be honest. I guess the idea is to have a lot of mirrors that you can use to get your ambush skills, because the ambush skill gives you DPS increase 25 for the next 10 seconds, which is obviously insane with the spear. Also your illusions do it. And then we probably let's see what kind of gear we have to run. Probably Berserker with Dragon Hunter rune. And then we have to go from there. Maybe we need to fit some Assassin's pieces in there, probably. Yeah. Ah, same gear as power at Boon Corner. Okay, that makes it even easier then. I guess that's fine. Yes, accuracy sigil. Okay. Okay, Peter relic. Okay. Ah, yeah, exactly this one. Okay. And then I have to go down a little bit my precision of it. 1 second, and then I guess I'm fine. Because I adjusted mine to have a little bit of a difference. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, so let's see if I can find a group. Oh, wait. Sometimes it doesn't work. That's so weird. Okay, let's try it out now. Let's see. Thanks for the follow, Marcellus, by the way. Yeah, I think I totally get why it's fun to play it, but I'm typically someone that wants to learn the rotation, how it's played in general, before I go into content with it, even if it's easy content, because I'm a person, I really like to min-mix. I want to be really sure what I'm doing is correct. Yeah. I mean, 40k as a really safe DPS build from almost 100% range is still a really good DPS build. But of course, if you're going for really fast kill time, then typically 40k is a little bit too low. Yes. So that's what I wanted to mention. And I think if you are going in strike missions, if you're going in easy content, easy raids, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Yeah. So if you're playing a build that does 40k DPS and you know what you're doing, you're typically top DPS, just because all the others don't know too much what they do. So that's really important. Yeah. Do you think Condivert's still the DPS choice for Harvest Temple CM Legendary Service? I think it depends on the group, but I would say if you are very new and the whole group didn't kill it before, I think it's still a very good choice. Definitely. It is so safe. Even with the lower DPS, I think it's still extremely good there. I have to be honest. And there are quite specific conditions that you have to meet as a DPS build to make it really good there. So typically I would say, I don't know, it's still a very good thing. What DPS do you think could potentially replace Word? What is a good DPS build? I mean, Condi Scourge is definitely a build that is possible, but Condi Scourge is a little bit lower, I think, even lower than Condivert. I'm not completely sure about that, though. I did not check the benches there yet. Other than that, I have to check better people that really do that all the time, because I did not. Yeah, I think Condi Scourge is not everyone's favorite. That's true. I think there was some kind of thief build was played before by some NA group that they really grinded with a thief. I think it was a Deadeye, but I'm not completely sure about that. I'm not sure. I don't want to spread any misinformation there. What build would be better than Condivert for a progression group? But I don't know. I agree. Condi Scourge might be a little bit boring for sure. It might be not a hard build, but you spam a lot of the skills there. That's true. So the hard part here is to manage all your deception skills. So I have 4 deception skills, but John's has 3 charges, so I have in that sense 6. And every time I use that, when I have a clone present, I get another clone, which I then can use to shatter. So this build is actually not that easy to learn on the spot. So don't, yeah. Thanks for the follow, Snowdrop. Thanks, appreciate it. Yes, definitely. I think support is always the most demanded, because it's not only the most people want to play DPS and see numbers, but support can carry the hardest. So if you know what you're doing, the impact on support is not only there because you know what you're doing, but also because you can carry the group with all your buffs and that kind of stuff. So support is the role that I would go to if you want to have an impact and fill the group faster, for sure. No, it's fine. I'm happy about any follow or any subscription and whatever. I'm really happy if you enjoy my content. So thanks a lot for the support, Snowdrop. Yes, I mean, no, you need 2 defensive supports and you need 2 offensive supports. So you need in total 6 DPS after that. So yes, you need 2 defensive support, but you need 2 offensive supports as well, which you typically don't count as a. So please don't look at my rotation here. I'm just playing the build and try my best. Okay. It's horrible. Holy shit, I'm so bad. Do I see the Peta Relic buff? I mean, it's okay. I didn't even look at the rotation, I have to be honest, you know. I'm So, yeah, I mean, I'm not doing too bad, but I'm also not doing too great. It's not very common that I'm not top DPS as a DPS, I have to be honest. This is not very common to me. Now let me. It's actually crazy that I'm still 3rd DPS. I'm just pressing buttons right now. But it feels fun, it's fast-paced. I have to be honest, it doesn't feel as fun as I expected, just because it's actually quite slow when it comes to the attack. The ambush attack on spear is actually quite slow, even with quickness. But it's probably still I did not use Chaunt once, just because I don't know when I would probably use it. And I'm not even sure if I use all my shatters, or if I just. So please don't copy that. Copy that rotation. Yeah, just really bad at this. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's fine. I understand what the skills do, so that there's that. But my rotation is so horrible. If I remember that Feint was doing around 40k before the patch, and I'm doing 20k after the patch, yeah, that's not a very good thing. Wait, what are we doing? Yeah, so I was right after. Oh, I don't know why the group is ignoring my movement here. The Solo Reaper build you showcased today looks interesting. How is the effective balance patch? Not at all. It's completely the same. It did not change at all. So you can still play it exactly the same. So it's a really, really good build. I showed it. You can solo it in Fractals, which is obviously really, really good. Not a lot of builds can Fractal solos CMs even. So yeah, just that you know this is a really, really good build. Yeah, but I'm typically someone that I know that's not a very casual, friendly thing to say, but I'm someone I want to be really, really good. But if I'm DPS, I don't want to be someone that just learns a class. I want to have learned it already. So I want to learn my rotation before I go in the encounter. Because if I'm in the encounter and just learning it then and now, I think this is not very friendly to them. If everyone does that, then we have a bad time. Yeah, even for this easy fights. So that's just my take. Of course, if you just don't have, if you have a limited amount of playtime, then I totally get why you would do that. But I have more time to play the game, so I typically like to play optimally and not go for something that is mediocre at best here. Yeah. I'm currently playing the Power Mirage build. Okay, CC. Don't have any more. Please heal. I mean, it's nice that you have so many dodges. That helps a lot. Okay, we did it. I mean, typically I would now go to the bench and learn it at the golem, but I guess that was fine. Do you have any tip on accidentally canceling skills on Chrono? EG4 Spear 4 is sometimes having the feeling result that I don't get any fantasy. I think the biggest thing here is to try to learn it on the golem and try to have permanent alacrity and permanent quickness and just see how it feels and when it stops. So if you cast it and then you use the 4 skill after that and then you get a feeling when it's done casting. If you do that all the time with quickness and alacrity, you at some point notice when you can cast other skills. Really important here to notice that the healing skill will cancel your skills. So the healing skill is always taking priority over other skills. So if you're doing for example, I don't know, let's say the 2 skill and I'm using my healing skill, I will cancel it mid-cast, which is obviously not what you want. You want to cast it and then cast something else. So always take advantage of that. Other than that, I would say it's just practice. That's the sad part, the sad truth. I can't tell you, do this and it works every time. It's just getting to know how it works, getting the experience. That's the best thing. 1 second. Do you have a recommendation for a build for a new player that doesn't require insane APM? I would say Condi Mechanist is, as someone pointed out in chat already. I think this is a rather decent build that doesn't have too many buttons to press. I think... what else? I think Herald, Quickness Herald, just pressing auto attack on sword is actually a really, really good thing. You can also play Power Herald just without quickness, and it is almost the same build. So those two are actually really, really good as well. And so on support, I would say Chronomancer and Scourge. were really, really good, as well as not pressing too many buttons, and you can start out slowly and learn more, and then it gets more complicated. Yeah, I think that's what I would answer here. Yeah, I mean, Feint is really good. I think that was one of the best videos that I have ever seen, where he showcased how you can skip with, for example, this skill, I think, or the X on Mirage and that kind of stuff, that you can do skips when you retarget while you jump and that kind of stuff. It's really cool. I think this is really interesting, but a casual player will never pull that off and is also not interested in that. So definitely really high-end kind of stuff. But I'm as a veteran, I'm really looking forward to learning that kind of stuff. Typically, it's not necessary, but I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's cool, so I will learn it, yeah, for sure. Definitely, like Snowdrop points out, unload data is really, really good. I have to admit, though, this build is... it's very easy, but I think it also leads you to believe that this build is a really good DPS build. But I think you should try always, if you start out as a new player, you should always try to learn a build that you enjoy. So if you're just going for the easiest build ever, that might not be the best option. So if you're an engineer, you should go for an engineer build and not go for the Deadeye build just because it's the easiest one. But I get why people play it, because it's so easy. It does a lot of damage for how easy it is. And I don't know. I think I think playing a class that you enjoy is always the most important thing. So if a new player comes to me and asks me which class should I play, which is the best class to play currently in PvE, I always tell them, play the class that you enjoy, because every single class has a build that is easy to play and somewhat decent in the game. Yeah. So I think it's way more important that you enjoy the spec that you play than just going for the easiest one and say, oh, it's so easy, I have to enjoy it. Because sometimes playing a build that is a little bit more difficult, but you enjoy it more, will lead to you learning this build and improving in the game than just going for something that is really easy and not improving in the game at all. Yeah. The easiest select DPS is Mirage. I'm not sure if that's true, because Mirage might be decently easy, but it's sadly also not that good. It feels like your upkeeping alacrity can be a little bit weird. I think the best alacrity DPS is probably Scourge. I think Scourge is really easy to upkeep alacrity. And you just spam all your skills. You don't really need the rotation. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Stokesky, for the explanation here. So it's actually a quite interesting combo to do that. Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, I have to be honest. Let's talk real here. I think Mirage, yeah, let's talk about the traits. In Mirage, my opinion is they should never have introduced a power-related trait line in Mirage, and rather make it more Condi favored. So that Mirage is a Condi build, and Virtuoso has no Condi traits whatsoever. So if you look at those three traits here, which you would take in a Condi build, in a Condi Virt build, yeah, those two here, I think those three traits should not exist. I think you should add here 3 utility traits that are increasing your power damage, making you more useful, while Mirage gets to have this power traits that you have, or this one, that you increase your power damage, should be more Condi favored. So that you have a clear spec that does power damage and a clear spec that does Condi damage. Because then I see a world where a Leg Mirage is actually playable as a Condi DPS. Because then you could introduce some Condi DPS favored, but also Boon DPS favored traits without having to sacrifice the powers thing. Because now they have Condi. They have utility and power in every single trait line that Mesmer has in the elite specs, which is not really nice. I think this is a balance problem in my opinion. But like I said, I'm happy that we now have to power Mirage because it's something that we never had before, and I think it's a really fun addition to the game. Might not be the best for all people, but I think I actually like it. Let's see if we find another strike mission. I mean, you can also play some World vs. World. That's what I wanted to do in the first place. After this, test some how it feels after the changes to World vs. World. Wanted to showcase a little bit of my Power Reaper and the nerfs that they got. Because they actually nerfed the 2 skill a bit. So let's see if it's still working. I think Mirage was not designed as a desert assassin, was it? I think it was designed as a desert confusion-y spec because it confuses the enemy because of all the illusion and kind of stuff. I think it was more, when it first released, it was only playable as a Condi build. And they changed it a while ago when they, for whatever reason, came up with the idea we have to go for a power build. Yeah. And I think a Condi word, in my opinion, is also something that is not completely... I think it's a cool idea to have bleeding caused by daggers, yes. But I think forcing every single possible way to play a DPS in one elite spec is just not playing out really well. Yeah. In my opinion, for example, Word could have, instead of the Condi traits, for example, the last trait could be you get 3 more plates, maximum capacity. So you don't have 5, but maybe 8, maybe 7. Yeah. So that you have an even higher burst spike that you can do, but you have to sacrifice another trait that you don't get plates that easily. So you stack up your plates to a higher limit, but it's way harder to stack them. So in my opinion, that would be really cool because that would lead to some interesting gameplay. But now you have a Condi trait line, which is clearly defined for Condi builds. You only take it then. And then you have the power trait line, which you only use for power. So I think this is not really interesting design-wise. You wanted to have something that makes you consider every trait. But I think nowadays it just feels like, yeah, you take the trait that is power. You take the trait that is Condi. That's it. You don't have any decision-making anymore. It's not like you have a real build crafting going on. It's just a straight decision because all the other traits don't make sense. That's just my take. Yeah. And the same is true for Mirage, in my opinion. But I think it's hard to understand as a new player how Mirage was designed because PoF released years ago. And back then, when you look at PvP Mirage, it was the clear design that they wanted you to dodge attacks that you wanted to confuse your enemies with all your attacks with your ambush skills and that kind of stuff. And that you apply Condis all the time. That makes it a little bit harder for enemies to get to you and that kind of stuff. But they completely dropped that, and now Power Mirage is everywhere. In PvP, in World vs. World, in PvE even now. So it's definitely not... Can I get a 1-on-1 here? Maybe, maybe not. No, I can't. I mean, back in the day in PvP, we had the power block Condi Mirage, which I think is the best way how to play Mirage in PvP because it was a really squishy, really interrupting, really confusing build that was hard to play, but really fun to play, and it was really obnoxious to fight against, and I think this was the way how you should play Mirage. But now it's a power Mirage, and now it feels like it's played more like a, I don't know, a typical roamer, like a Willbender and that kind of stuff, just that it's more focused on dodging instead of damage mitigation. So I think, I don't know, I think some balanced decision when it comes to how the class fantasy works out is not, I don't know, not my favorite, but what can you do? I think that they are the developers, so I guess that's what they have to come up with, not me. Yeah, I think ArenaNet is not really trying to stick to the class fantasies anymore. I think the class fantasies were when they did elite specs release and that kind of stuff all the time, they had a real clear fantasy that they wanted to fill. But nowadays they just want to make every single class be able to perform as every single role and make them less unique but more interchangeable in that sense, which is, for me as a veteran, not something that I would like. Of course, if you're a new player and you start out with a class, you want to have the option to play the class until the end game and play every single role with that. I can understand that. But for me as a veteran, I like to have a really clear purity of purpose of a single class. Just my take. Yeah. I mean, Galen, don't worry. You lose with the DK, you lose points, but the points are not really gone. You are still, so to say, rated at that level. You just can't get the rank. So that means if you do 2 matches with 200 DK, you will get 100 points every single match at least. And in the end, you will result almost the same amount where you were before, depending on how many matches you win or lose. So the DK is not really affecting anything. It's just, so to say, you can't push to 150 games or something, and at the end of the season, you will still be rank 1 if you have the highest rating. No, you will get punished for not playing 7 days in a row or something. But in the end, you can still, if you play 7 matches, you will be back there where you were, almost. Yes, Mirage is definitely not as tanky as Wilbender, yeah, you're right there. But it can feel really evasive because of all the dodges. And I think that's a really cool design. But in my opinion, I think it would be even cooler if it would be a Condi build. I think that's more fitting than a power-up Mirage. But that's just my take, of course. It's my opinion. I can see why other people would disagree with me there. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if no one is coming here, then I will probably just go in PvE again. I think that's more interesting. Yeah, I think they try to achieve something just because they have the ultimate goal of having every single class being able to perform at every single role and every single thing that they need to fill. But I think it's just illusional, because if you just look at the utility skills of Mesmer, of Guardian with the core utilities, they are so much more versatile for group play than, for example, an Elementalist. An Elementalist core utilities are so much worse than if you look, we have a fight. Nice, we have a fight here. I think this guy's dead now. Typical thief, just running away. Stop running. Why are you running? Come back. Now it's playing Deadeye. That's now it's getting annoying, I have to be honest. I'm just focusing on the Guardian here, just because I feel like I can get more life stealing from this guy, but I think I will die now. Yeah. I hate fighting Deadeyes. It's just so annoying. They're just camping rival, and if you are just not able to kill them, it feels really, really annoying. But what I was saying is, for example, the core utilities often define how useful a class is in a lot of situations. And for example, if you want to fit an Elementalist and filling the same role as, for example, a Chronomancer, you have to buff the class a lot when it comes to the utilities. And this is really, really hard, because why would you do that if you just can make it more interesting so that an Elementalist has maybe more healing output than a Chronomancer, but a Chronomancer has more utility? So I think this decision making would be way more interesting than if you just say, okay, every single class has to apply alacrity or quickness, can be a healer, and that's it. And then you try to give every single class stability and that kind of stuff. But I think this is boring. So why not have a class that provides a lot of stability, like Guardian? Then another class that has a lot of utilities with reflects, with port teleports and that kind of stuff, like Mesmer. And then you have another healer or supporter that does a lot of healing, for example, like Elementalist. That would be really cool, because then you had to decide, okay, which class would I pick? But nowadays it's more like, okay, we have to buff this class. And how do we do that? No, I would say this class doesn't have currently enough boon access, not enough stability. Let's give it stability. This is not something that I really enjoy, because it's just leading to more homogenization in that sense, because the classes all feel the same in a different color. So if you look at how many boons Chronomancer provides, yes, it provides a lot of boons, but the healing output and the boon providing is very close to, for example, to a Druid, to a Firebrand. They just feel really close. It's not completely different anymore. It's like you heal, you provide a lot of boons, you can give stability, you can CC. Every single support can do that. And that's also the reason why I would say supports are typically the most broken classes right now. It's not the power creep in regards to DPS. Yes, there's a lot of power creep in DPS, but I think the highest power creep is in supports. Look at how much support you can provide as, for example, a Chronomancer. You have so much healing output. You have so many Condi cleanses, yeah? Just this trade alone, you have immense amount of Condi cleanses, yeah? And you can provide your boon, you can provide so many other boons, you can have full utility. Every single utility skill that you have, you can exchange if you need it, which is insane. A lot of classes previously had to take at least 2 utility skills to provide permanent quickness, for example. Nowadays, it's all baked into the utility of the core mechanic of the elite spec, like the shatters here. So it's completely insane. And I think this is not something that I would personally say is a good decision, because it leads to really, really crazy good supports and is just a power creep in general. I think it would be way cooler if you make it more so that you have to decide, okay, this class is really good here right now, but it might not be good on the next boss. But if every class has every single utility and every single skill that is necessary to complete every single boss, it feels like, why would you choose another class? You always choose the slightly best class. I don't know. I think it would be really cool if you make it more interesting to people to play different classes, because nowadays you can just play one class and that will be good enough for the most part. And I think it's way cooler if you make people play different builds all the time to keep them more entertained for longer. That might be a weird take, but I think Guild Wars 2 lacks a bit in the long-lasting enjoyment for people, because it's really easy to get the highest amount of gear, the highest level of with a character. Ascended gear is really easy to acquire nowadays, and people just might quit after that because they are not used to having perfect gear all the time. So having an incentive to play with different classes and builds, why not? I think that would be really cool if they would do that. Of course, they can't really go back to that now, so they will just have to live with that. But I think that is not the best decision they made, for sure. I mean, it feels great to have that amount of boon uptime just for pressing random buttons all the time. I think that is definitely true, but in my opinion, it's not something that is really, really good decision-wise, yeah, in the design decision. I don't know. It's just my take. I can see why people would not agree with me there, but I think it is, at least for some kind of veteran that wants to play the game long term, probably quite agreeable statement. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy the classes right now in power creep. I think I really value that. It's really fun to play, but it just feels like the game plays to some extent for itself. You don't have to think anymore. And I really like to think about what I'm doing and not just randomly pressing buttons and succeeding, you know. So I want to think about, okay, this boss fight is way easier if I bring this support, and the next fight changes it. I think that would be really cool. But nowadays it feels like, okay, we have a quick DPS, we have a elect healer, sounds good, and we have every single boon then. That feels like, okay, not a really good design decision. Of course, the same goes for alacrity and quickness. I think permanent alacrity and quickness is something that a lot of really hardcore players in Guild Wars 2, especially in competitive modes, don't enjoy, because it feels like it's not very skillful to just have it 100%. It would be way cooler if you say, okay, we have a burst phase coming up, giving you 5 seconds of quickness now, and then you can do a lot of damage in the next 5 seconds. But now it feels like if you don't have quickness, you lose 50% of your damage. So that's horrible, yeah? So I think in the first time when they come up with quickness and alacrity, they should have made the decision to say, okay, this is a short buff that is not able to upkeep 100%. Even the game director of Guild Wars 2, which is Crouch, is actually agreeing with me there. But of course they can't go back now, because a lot of people just had this already. It's not where it once was. You can't go back to this. Why would you start? One second, I will read your comment in a short while after we get this boss. Just want to make sure that we CC this, because I can easily hard carry this CC phase just with my utilities and my just baseline toolkit of Chronomancer. Look at this CC. I'm doing almost single-handedly carrying this break bar. Chronomancer is so broken. I mean, I can't teleport down players, but sadly no one else not really can do it anymore. So that was the only thing why I would say Heal Scourge was probably even more broken build, but so 1 second and then I can answer your comments. Why are you dying there? What are you doing there? I did not dodge a single time. So just saying this boss is supposedly one of the hardest Ice Blood Saga strike mission bosses, and I did not dodge a single time. And I actually, if my people would stand on me, they probably don't have to dodge anyway as well. Just because I can provide so much protection, so much healing, so much stability, so much H's. Really broken. It's a crazy good showcase of this. Funny off topic, I went into World vs. World with a mob tagging build as power greatsword Mirage in a keep defense, recharging dodge on kill via sigil. Did so well considering exotic gear that I want to try it now while being at buff. I mean, it's actually a decent build. I think a lot of people nowadays play that exact build in Zergs just because the greatsword ambush is so strong. So don't worry, this is actually a decent build in Zerging. What do you think about Hammer Catalyst in World vs. World for roaming? Is it good? Power or Condi? What do you think about it? I think Hammer Catalyst is really, really good. I would play it as a power build with Marauder. If you want to go a little bit tankier, you can go with Celestial. But it's really good. It might be one of the best roaming builds right now. Yes, for sure. So be sure to give it a try. I might make a new build guide about it in the future. But it's really, really good. Can highly recommend it. Welcome, Skadupta. Welcome. Yeah, the stability is crazy. Of course, you have to keep a little bit track of that. I give myself stability, for example, with the first shatter and all the other shatters. So if I give myself stability, that does not mean that I give my ally stability. The only one that gives stability is this one, and this one, and this one. So yes, I give some stability, actually quite a lot, but I give myself way more than I give my allies. I'm getting towards finishing my legendary trinket and want to do weapons next. Are Gen 3 legendary weapons the cheapest, easiest to get? If you don't care about cosmetics, the cheapest ones are definitely the ones that are in the legendary starter kit. So if you look at weapons and legendaries, you can just check. They are around 2.2k. And if you look, for example, at, I don't know, those ones that are in the legendary starter kit like Twilight, 1.5k pre-order. So they are a little bit cheaper, And that's why I would go for Generation 1 legendaries if they are in the starter kit. If they are not in the starter kit, then they are almost equal. I think you just have to check the prices. It's a little bit fluctuating. It's not completely clear. I think most of them are very similar. Like I said, the legendary starter ones that are in the current starter kits are typically cheaper because a lot of people can make it. But does Hammer Catalyst lack of mobility in World vs. World situations of Willbender or Druids? Yes, you have less mobility, so you will probably have difficulties fighting a good Thief or fighting a really good Willbender, but the Willbender got a lot of nerfs to the mobility in World vs. World, so it might not be that strong anymore. And if you can just deal with the utility that you have in your kit, just having a lot of blocks and a lot of evades and that kind of stuff, you might still be able to kill them if you burst them fast. If they engage and you burst them, that might be enough to just win the 1-on-1. But I agree, it might not be the, let's say, fastest build. Then you have to play some kind of dagger build, which is way faster, or mobile in that sense. But I think it's not necessary if you know that is some kind of weakness of your build. If you know that this is a weakness, then you have to fight accordingly. You have to go to no port spots, like in PvP. You have to play it safe. You try to kite out. You don't want to have a fight that is decided by the enemy. So that you, for example, fight in an open field where they can easily run away. You want to lure them in some kind of choke or something so that they have to really engage and can't really disengage that easily. So that's my tip there. Of course, you're right. It can be a just insurmountable disadvantage, but for the most part, I would say you are such a good build with this hammer setup that I would say it's definitely not necessary to just... Why is my game lagging? Okay, it's good again, I hope. Sorry, I had some lags there. So I think for roaming it's a really good pick, definitely. Especially with the changes that we currently got with Willbender and that kind of stuff. Why are people always standing in the hitbox? So I have to move out. Please don't stand in the hitbox when the chains are up. Regarding legendaries, I'm still mad at Inet that they haven't adjusted the Gen 2 prices. It's insanity to pay almost 1.5k more for the same weapon, essentially. Yes, I would agree. I actually went for a lot of them recently just because I did not have the skins yet. And I think it's actually insane that they made the... What you need is more annoying than all the other legendaries because you have to craft them yourself. And they are more expensive. So I think this is just overall a really, really bad deal. And if you then think about that, I think half of them are actually not that good looking. So I think it's just overall the Gen 2 legendaries are not very, yeah, what can I say, consumer friendly. And I think they should try to address this issue. But they are a little bit careful because most of the prices come from the Mystic Coins and that kind of stuff. Not most, but a lot of the major part. And I would say they really like the Mystic Coins being at a high price because that keeps people going into World vs. World where you get guaranteed Mystic Coins, going for Layla and Anomaly and that kind of stuff where you get guaranteed Mystic Coins. And they really want to have high prices there. So I think they are just really not... They don't want to address this issue, I think, which is sad because I really like legendaries to be similar so that you can go for the ones that you enjoy because of the skin. But nowadays it feels like there is some kind of gap. So you go for the one that is cheap or you go for the Gen 2 one, which is annoying and more expensive. So I don't know. Would be nice if you make a video about Hammer Catalyst because I'm a beginner roamer and don't know what trades to choose. If I have a build, I look what it loses with the other build. It's hard for me to choose the trades. Yes, I can make that. I actually have a build guide on my YouTube channel where I showcase Dagger and Hammer at the same time because they are actually quite similar in what traits you would use. So you can check that out. I can send you the link or just look for Catalyst roaming build. But I will also make a dedicated build, so don't worry. Oh, come on. Can't they wait, please? I mean, those that are nice are really did. I would agree. The Gen 2 legendaries have the highest amount of difference, variance. So some of them are really nice, probably the best legendaries in the game, but they are also the ugliest, to be honest. So I think legendaries in the Gen 2 package are wild. Sometimes they are crazy strong, sometimes they are just really, really ugly, and I don't like them at all. Yeah, Flames of War, I would say probably the by far the ugliest legendary that there is. Because the sad part is there are some kind of troll legendaries in Gen 1, for example, but I have to be honest. Flames of War is not a troll legendary, and it's still very, very ugly. I don't know. Do you think the Dragon Hunter buffs are anything significant for PvE? Yes, of course. I think the Dragon Hunter buffs are actually major. I think Dragon Hunter will be one of the best power DPS right now after the patch. It has benches around 45k now. It's crazy. It's really, really good. Yes, I will send you the link. Give me a second. I have it. Finally. Here it is. This is the guide. Be sure to check it out. I'm planning of doing a dedicated hammer build. Yeah, as well. Nevermore is Gen 2. That's correct, yes. Nevermore is one of the nicest. I also like Astrolaria, I like Hope, I like Chuka and Champavat. All of those really early Gen 2s, I think they are amazing. Exordium is really nice, the Great Sword. I also like Chiquatl, or how it's called, the Scepter. I think those are really good. But if you look, for example, at HMS Divinity or even, of course, Flames of War, those are so annoying. I think they are so bad. So bad. No. Yeah. Yeah, I think Nevermore is not everyone's favorite. I get that, but I personally enjoy it. And I think this is the most important one. I think legendaries are subjective always, the skins, so you should just go for the one that you like, and if you don't like it, go for another one. I think there are so many options nowadays, there will be some kind of weapon that you like. And the cool part is, you can also use any other skin on it just for free now. So I think that's really good. Of course, I mean, if you have it unlocked, of course. But it's definitely a really nice, convenient feature that you don't need to spend any transmutation charges. Yeah, I think they are really good legendaries. I might do a legendary tier list in the future, where I just rate the legendary skins just for fun. Of course, it's very subjective. It's not something that really is educational in any sense, but I think it's a really fun thing to do, to just discuss the legendary skins and, yeah, debate them. If there's some agreement there, or if people really say I'm completely delusional to say that, I don't know, the Mood is an insane good legendary. I think that would be really fun. Quests are also really good. Yes, I agree. I think the quests to get those 4 legendaries like Hope, Stuka, Champavat, what is the other one? Astrolaria and Hope. Those are really, really good. I think those are probably the best legendaries they ever made, just because they are looking good, they have a nice quest to go for, and they are, I don't know, just feeling a really good package. I have to be honest. I think they are just a perfect piece. I don't know. Yeah. But I think it also might be a hot take, but I think legendaries that you have to craft yourself, that you have to go on a journey yourself, feel more like a real achievement. Because having a legendary that you can just easily buy from the TP feels like cheating to me. I like to have some kind of achievement, some kind of prestigious things. Yeah, sure. See you later, Favus too. Hope you enjoy my video. So for me, it's really, I don't know. I really have like to go for an achievement. So even though I am not, let's say, the biggest fan of all the Urine weapons. So if you look, for example, I typically don't use all the Urine skins anymore. So I use it here, but I don't use it on every single character. For example, the Urine dagger or something, not all the time. Yeah. But I went for the whole thing, going for the achievement here, Facet of Prison and Boundless Night, because I think it's a really cool achievement. It's really cool to have something to go for, and it's a prestigious thing. It's not something that can people easily buy, just swiping for buying thousands of euro or dollar into the game and saying, okay, I just buy every single legendary. No, you have to go on a journey and grind it. And I think this is something that I really enjoy. It's a prestigious thing to some extent. It's just grind, yes, but in the end, it feels like it's a nice thing to go for, a nice goal. Just swiping and buying eternity from the TP feels to me like cheating. I get why people do it, yeah, don't get me wrong. But in my opinion, that would not be satisfying to me. That might be a hot take, yes, but I like to have a goal that I go for, and when I reach it, I'm happy. So this is just my opinion. So I would personally, really just personally say legendaries should not be sellable on the TP. Legendaries should be something that you have to work towards yourself, and there should be more legendaries in the game so that people that only play one game mode can go for a legendary that only they can get. Yes, I know Guild Wars is not designed like that, but I think that would be really cool. I personally, as a veteran, would really like that. Hot take, I know, but that would be my, I don't know, end game vision for Guild Wars 2. It's not happening, of course. That's not what Guild Wars 2 is. But it's something that I would personally really like. One second, let's do some Harvest Temple. Hey Surma, how do you think the LA changes are going to affect your Celestial Catalyst open world build? I'd really like it and hate to see the nerfs to Kata. I think you can still play that build. I think the nerfs are not really affecting it. I think the build is still very, very good. And I personally would say the nerfs are minor, if not minuscule. I would say they are not really affecting it. So I would definitely go with the build. If you enjoy it, just play it. It's not changing too much. Don't worry. That's why I think ANET should crack down on raid selling and stuff like that. It really devalues the experience, and now we have another avenue of getting PvE legendary anyway. Yeah, I would agree. I think having the ability to sell stuff like ATs in PvP, like selling really high titles in PvE, I think that kind of stuff devalues the prestige of all the possibly prestigious rewards that you already can get in Guild Wars 2. And Guild Wars 2 doesn't have really a high amount of prestigious rewards. So if you look at World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, they have really cool skins, they have really cool titles, all that kind of stuff, mounts that you can get from playing the really high and really niche content that not a lot of people can do. In Guild Wars 2, you have some content that does that, but most of the content you can actually just pay in-game gold or just get carried to get it. And I think that really devalues the amount of prestigious things that you can get. And I don't really like that, because I personally think that's a really cool thing. Yeah, that we have that in the game. That we have titles that are colorful, for example, that are, for example, going for Ultimate Dominator 10, really prestigious reward. I think that's cool. You know, it doesn't mean that you're a good player. It just means you grinded a lot. But I think it's still a cool thing. If you see someone with that, there is no one currently, but if there would be someone, I would be really surprised, and I would say, respect. You played a lot of World versus World. you know, I think this is really cool. Yeah. I agree, Guffering. I actually also farmed Eternity and was really happy when I had it, but I actually did not use it all the time. Nowadays, I use a lot of Exordium as well. So I think it's cool to have some kind of prestigious item to go for. Sadly, in Guild Wars 2, we don't have that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if they will ever do something against raid selling and that kind of stuff to make it more prestigious. I actually doubt it. I think they are happy when people do their stuff that they are typically not able to do, and they just get more attention of the game mode that they normally wouldn't get. But I'm personally definitely not a fan of it, for sure. Oh, we have a portal here. Try hard. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, I saw that on Reddit recently, that people advocated for having more racial skins, more racial stuff. I think that would be cool as well. If you can get some really cool racial armor skins, for example, from a special boss, I don't know. I think that would be really cool if you can grind for stuff like that. But nowadays it feels like every single thing is either buyable on the TP, or you can just purchase the achievement to some extent. So, I don't know. It doesn't feel like Guild Wars 2 is designed in a way where you really have some kind of prestigious rewards. I don't know. Wow, Illusion X Mirage is at 47k. I mean, maybe Mirage is back. Really cool, really interesting. I mean, I think Mirage is one of the specs that I would really like to see back, just because I think it's a really difficult spec to play most of the time. And that makes it fair if it would be a little bit higher DPS, in my opinion. I think ArenaNet should balance around that. They should make classes that are more difficult to play better DPS than classes that are less DPS. That's just my take, that their easier classes should have less DPS. But ArenaNet doesn't agree. They nerf all the time the hard classes to a point where it seems like, I don't know, looks like they just go for normal DPS anyway, even if it's hard. So for me, it would be either Non-Berserker with 2x Frost Strength, that new Legendary Spear, or Char Data with 2 Incinerate and Bread Arrive. I mean, it seems fitting. I totally agree. I think that would be cool. And I think going for different kind of legendaries that fit your character, I think is really a nice endgame goal. But like I said, legendaries don't feel that prestigious to me anymore. I think it's just a gold grind. Everyone can get the legendaries if they just play the game for long. They don't have to really commit to anything anymore. Which is true since almost the beginning of the game, but at least there was a little bit harder in my opinion. But I think it's fine. I don't mind if people get the legendaries. Don't get me wrong here. I just mind it if people get, for example, titles and stuff that they're not supposed to get just by buying them from raid sellers. I think that's not something that I really enjoy. Let's see how many people die to the giant risen things that are spawning soon. I think this is the killer in packs often. Yeah, I think the LFG is often filled, especially on NA, with raid selling groups, which is a big problem as well. I think we have screenshots of 10 raid sellers and no normal party, which is obviously really bad for the image of the game, of the raids and stuff. But that's the issue here is also that a lot of people that play raids are typically just playing them as a group alone, and typically are on Discord and that kind of stuff and don't want to pack it, which leads to the pack scene dying, and then you have in the end not a really good amount of people getting into the game because they see, oh, there is no one playing raids, it has to be dead. But that's not the case. There are people playing raids, but they are just typically playing raids alone or not really packing in that sense, which is obviously, in my opinion, not a good thing. But I'm not sure how Arena can fix this. I think they should maybe increase the amount of rewards you get. I think that would be the best fix when it comes to raiding. I think they should increase the amount that you get when you re-clear raids, so that people that are tryhard can go for a raid clear once a week, and if they still have some time of they want to go for, then they still get 1 gold by killing a boss or something. Something like the dungeon frequenter achievement would be really good for raids, in my opinion. So that if you complete 8 bosses or something like that you haven't killed in this rotation before, you get some gold. And if you killed 8, it will reset and you can kill them again. So that would possibly encourage people to only play raids all the time, because there is no weekly gate anymore to getting gold. That might be a way to fix this issue. But they are a little bit afraid of putting more gold or liquid stuff in the game. They are really afraid of that, which is obviously a reasonable concern, so that people don't get devalued and we get inflation going on. I get that. But in my opinion, if the game is not really fun anymore because they really try to fix the inflation, I'm not sure which is the worst outcome. I'd lead more training rates, but people who join are sometimes literally unwilling to change not even a single thing without their of their build, not gonna deal with it. Yeah, I think I try to do that on stream as well, but a lot of people that are going for raid trainings, not on stream, but just in general, are new players, and a lot of people are somewhat stubborn when it comes to their build selection, and this is not something that you typically want to deal with. You want people that play the game as you should play it to some extent, so that you can learn the mechanics from a fight and not really have to deal with all the people that just troll with builds that are not really worth it. If you have a soldier stats warrior running around with rival as a DPS, it's not looking good. So let me tell you this. So that's just... Oh no, we're gonna miss it. No, nice, we did not. Very good. Okay, let's burst this guy. And we are done. Yeah, I think it's important that you have people in a raid training that are interested in learning the mechanics and not only want the kill. So that's why for example, when I do raid training and we would kill a boss first try, if it was messy, if people did not do the mechanics correctly, I reset. Because I think it's important that people understand the mechanics. Raids should definitely be more rewarding. A daily bonus wing or something would be cool too. Yeah, I agree. I think raids should be more playable, and the weekly lockout doesn't help with how raids are played. That's for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think in-game tutorials, that's a big problem. I think ArenaNet does it in some kind of zones, but when it comes to raids, when it comes to fractals, when it comes to PvP even, there are no tutorials at all, and this is a big problem, and they never went back to put any tutorials in there. So I think they will not do it, but I totally agree. I think that would be an amazing feature if they would put in some tutorials. Definitely, for sure. I think that is actually necessary. If you look at the high-end MMOs, typically they have some kind of tutorials that at least introduce you to some key mechanics of the game mode. And raids don't have any, and that's obviously a big problem. Yeah, thanks for joining, Gavlik. Thanks. See you next time. But I think raids also have I think you have to be careful. You don't want to make raids that are completely easy. I think raids have some kind of pre-event. For example, Veil Guardian explains almost all mechanics in the pre-event. I think this is fine as a tutorial. You want to have some kind of progression element in there. But you typically don't have some kind of telegraph. For example, a green telegraph means typically you have to stack. An orange telegraph means you have to move out, or a red one. So there is no explanation of that typically. So this is really important, that they have some kind of uniform thing that makes it more easier to understand for new players. So that it's always green moves means move together and stack and that kind of stuff. I think that would be important. I think that's not always the case, and that's a problem. Daily raids akin to daily fractals would be so good, especially if they also generate big amounts of liquid gold. Yes, I think that would be amazing, because if they would give you liquid gold, even let's just imagine they would do one raid wing, yeah, that is like a daily fractal. Like, let's say we have now daily T4 Nightmare fractal, yeah, and you would have now like this daily wing 1 clear, and this will give you, you only had one wing, for example, that gives you that, yeah, and that would give you, let's say, 3 gold. That would not be a good gold per hour, but I think a lot of people would still do it just because they would get liquid gold, and people are so attracted to liquid gold. I think that's something that would really emphasize how cool raids would be, because if people would just continue playing raid wings, at least the easy ones, all the time, I think that would be amazing. Because if you look at, for example, PvP rewards, you get, where is it? You get here the rewards, 20 gold. Oh my god, I get 20 gold from playing PvP. People play PvP because of that, but it doesn't matter, because in the end, the gold per hour with PvP is actually not that insane. It's decent, but it's not insane. So people really play because they see liquid gold. I think that would be amazing. If it would be a high number, that would be even better for people that are tryharding. I think the Dungeon Frequenter achievement in that sense would be amazing. I think if you know this achievement, Dungeon Frequenter, you can complete it. You do 8 dungeons and you get 5 gold liquid and some Tales of Dungeon Table. Yeah. So why not do that exactly like that for raids? That would be so cool. So you have every possible boss, and when you complete, for example, 8, you get 5 gold. Yes, you might farm always the same 8. Maybe you can put it up to 12, maybe 15. Doesn't matter. All the raid bosses, whatever. But you could make it infinite so that you can grind all the achievement. That would be so cool. I don't know. Would be a nice thing. Yes, we have raid training tomorrow. We will do Wing 4. I posted it on Discord. I hope you all will be there. We will have some fun time and I will try to explain everything you need to know. Is Power Data any good in PvE? I never see it used anywhere. Yes, Power Data is actually quite decent. You can use some Unload Data. It's really, really good. And Power Data feels a little bit clunky with Dagger at the high end, but you can still play it. It's a really nice benchmark as well. Not a lot of people use it because it feels really situational. It's not that easy to pull off. That's why it's not that often used. That's the answer to that. But it's definitely a good thing. Do you think Relic of the Demon Queen would be good on a Condi Catalyst build? In PvP, yes, and World vs. World. In PvE, obviously, Condi Catalyst is not really a thing. Yes, and I think Demon Queen is obviously a competitive relic for sure. Yeah. Yeah, if Fractals would be the measurement standard, you could even make the argument for 5 to 10 gold for a daily wing easily. Yes, I think if the measurement standard is around daily Fractals, then you could go for 5 to 10 gold. But I think they really want to be careful with how much liquid gold they put out. They don't want to get an inflation going. But I think an incentive to play raids like 5 gold per day would be amazing. I mean, maybe it has to depend a bit on the raid wing. For example, maybe raid wing 4 gets less than raid wing 6 maybe, because people tend to be killed by Kadim. Maybe that's a little bit harder. Then you get more gold. Maybe. Would be cool. But I think liquid gold rewards for raids increases if you re-clear it would be amazing. Really, really good. I will try my Berserker tomorrow, something new instead of Chrono. I'll leave Chronomancing to professional. I mean, you're a professional. You killed all the raid bosses with me, so perfect. No, to play what you want. I think Berserker is fine as well. We will find some spot for you in any case. Don't worry. Yeah, I think Heal Thief, Heal Spectre will probably be a really good asset when it comes to PvE in some circumstances. And I think Heal Spectre, or not Heal Spectre, but General Spectre in PvP will be a really good pick. I have to agree. I think this is a really good thing. Why is Deadeye hard to pull off? I think Deadeye is a little bit annoying to play because of the malice stuff and how it works with phasing. If a boss phases, you lose the malice stacks is a little bit hard to keep track. I think it's just annoying to play. It's not hard to pull off, but it feels like you can't pull off the DPS that you need to, because how it interacts with the boss is typically not something that you really want to play. What's your thought on Boon Chrono? Easy to do? I think if you go for a power, so a Boon Chronomancer that uses Spear, that is like a offensive build, it is somewhat hard to pull off. It's not the easiest boon DPS, but if you can pull it off, it's really high DPS. If you're talking about support Chronomancer, the skill floor is quite low. It is extremely strong, so you can easily pull it off. But if you want to play at a high end, it has a really high skill ceiling, so I think this is a really, really good build right now. So support Chronomancer with healing power, it's really good. New bench numbers, Spear Soul Beast 44.7k, Quick Untamed around 36k. I mean, seems good. I think this is where we wanted it to be. I think a Spear is really nice. Now we can finally play Ranger with Spear. I'm happy about that. I'm not sure if the numbers will stay like that. I think this is definitely interesting. Thanks for the sub, Sideok. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the stream. And yeah, I think the Spear changes to Ranger I'm really happy about. I think it's now finally a build that you can definitely play, and I think Spear is so fitting for Ranger. I really like that weapon design. I'll hope to play support in the future, but first I must clear the in and outs of raiding first. I mean, you don't have to learn every single mechanic before you play a different class, but I think it's important that you play a class that you're comfortable with when you learn the fight, because otherwise you might get overwhelmed by everything all at once. So if you are comfortable on Berserker, go for that. We will find someone else that does support. That's completely fine. And I think when it comes to raid training, especially, for example, on Demos, there are some kind of special mechanics, and I will try to teach them when it comes to all the mechanics. But I'm not sure if I will definitely say, okay, we need every single mechanic filled by a new player, because then we will not clear it. I can tell you that much. Demos is way harder than the first 3 bosses in Raid Wing 4. So that means typically if you have all new people filling the crucial roles on Demos, it will not be cleared tomorrow. Because it's just people don't understand the mechanics at the same time and don't understand it too fast. So typically I try to go for some runs and then we swap out people that are more experienced with the inexperienced people and filling the roles then, and then we will probably get some kills as well. I think that's the best way. I noticed Berserker can keep Berserking state for long. Yeah, I think Berserker should, in an ideal world, you should upkeep it permanently as a DPS Berserker. There is no issue whatsoever with not upkeeping it permanently. Yes. I think I personally would say it's not a good design decision to permanently upkeep Berserk mode. I think it would be way cooler if you had a decent amount of DPS, even if you come out of Berserk mode, but they decided to not do that. That's what they did, so that's where we are. I typically am more of a fan of understanding your build and making it a bit more so that you go in Berserk mode, have a nice burst phase, and then you leave, and having a decent phase where you don't deal that much damage, but the burst phase comes after when you go back in Berserk mode. But they decided to make it permanently, and now it feels really, really bad, Berserker, if you drop out of Berserk mode, for example, when a phase is happening, because you can't upkeep your and hit your rage skills. So I think this feels really bad. I'm not happy about that, but that's how they went. Yeah. I mean, I was power chrono, not support one, so not much will change besides that I wouldn't be able to give a leg on Berserk, but I can get quickness. Yeah, I mean, it's totally fine. Like I said, you run what you enjoy and we will fill the spots around you. That's not a big deal. Demos training is just running Fractal 100. Yeah, I think Demos training, I have to say, I don't want to be pessimistic here, but I think Demos training, we will do the first 3 bosses. I will explain everything. And then when we get to Demos, I will explain Demos. We will try some runs, but I won't grind Demos for 2 hours. I think Demos can be a fight, especially with inexperienced people. If there are some Oilers in there that just enjoy to touch the black spot all the time and kill the group with it, yeah, I'm not that happy about that. But of course, if we miraculously clear it at the first few tries, then no problem. Then we will go for that. I just don't want to get the hopes up and say, oh, Demos is the last boss, we will get it easily. That's not gonna happen. Demos is a little bit harder, has a little bit more intricacies when it comes to all the mechanics that it can kill you with. Yeah. Yeah, Demos is the brother of Ceros. So those 2 demons are actually siblings, as far as I understand. That's why they are also in the Lonely Tower Fractal together. But it's not really important. They also look quite similar, so yeah, that's just how it goes, I guess. if you're brothers, then you might look similar. That makes sense, I guess. A lot of Ascended Savage kids today. Very good. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think Demos is a really interesting fight. I think it's the most interesting fight for sure in the Fractal in the Red Wing 4 because it has some really interesting mechanics, but it's not my favorite fight of all raid bosses. That much is for sure. So let's open some Fractal encryptions. I always open them when I have a stack. Gives me around 100 gold or something. Some nice value here. Very good. Recently I put a lot of gold in our guild, so that's why my gold is not actually going up. I put a lot of effort in increasing the amount of guild slots and all the guild level and that kind of stuff. Currently we are capped out on Ethereum, but we don't have enough favor, so we have to do some guild missions. Maybe we can do them tomorrow. They are not that easy this week, sadly. So we have to complete 2 caravans escorts, which is, I don't really enjoy that because they are somewhat weird. They don't always give you the credit for escorting the Dolyak. It's really annoying. And then we have to capture and hold a tower. That feels really bad. And then we have to get 10 level in 30 minutes. This is not that hard if I have someone that maybe captures a Stonemist Castle with me and stuff, because I have some, world versus world experience bottles laying around that I can use to fill that. But yeah, I guess we can talk about it maybe tomorrow if we have enough time for that after the raid wing. So if you are a raid enjoyer or you want to be a one and you want to learn it, tomorrow all the spots are taken already, but you can still join the stream, and I really encourage you to do so because I will explain every single mechanic about Raid Wing 4. So you can just join, listen in, maybe get some tips, and next time we do it, typically we do it every 2 weeks or so, you can join and we will do another Raid Wing. So don't worry, there will be more in the future, so can't emphasize that enough. I think I really try to help and get new people in there. Yeah, and I think with that, thanks all for watching. I think this was today's stream. Thanks for all the support. Really appreciate all the subs and the follows. I hope you enjoyed my stream. Be sure to check out my YouTube if you haven't already. I have some nice content there as well. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Oh, I chose the World vs. World ones because I like them more. But we can also go for the PvE ones. That's the short answer. Yeah. So, like I said, thanks all for watching. It was a nice evening. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks a lot. See you around, guys.